Storytelling in a small town. Welcome back to Welcome back to Storytelling in a Small Town.
It can also be subdued.
Oh my God. So last time we talked about just ways to kind of tell your story, and that's really emphasize that story is much more important than how much money you're spending on that story. And today we want to kind of break down probably one of those most important stories is really the origin story, right? Like people want to understand, especially now, I think more than ever, people really want to connect with the brand industry. They want to know who they're buying from. They want to have that connection, right? Especially if they're going to be spending more money because it's a boutique or whatnot. They want to know who it is. So how do you tell your origin story? And we'll kind of talk through, honestly, I have no idea where it's going to go, but in theory, we're going to talk through what are some different ways to tell your story? What are questions to ask or ways to discover your origin story in a way that's creative?
Yeah. I think an interesting way to frame this might be, because I've had conversations like this recently. How do you tell an origin story when you don't feel like you have a story to tell? Because a lot of people are just like, I'm just doing my business. I just do a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't have this legacy that I'm stepping into. I'm not a third generation XYZ person.
Same.
So how do you tell that story when you don't have, quote unquote, a story to tell in your mind?
Yeah.
Might be a good way to frame this.
Yeah.
I'll start with my piece with, if you have not seen, he's technically a business coach. His name is Simon Sinek. If you've not ever watched Simon Sinek's The Golden Circle, stop watching this and go watch that before you like keep going. Because it's like the framework for a lot of how I think people have come to understand the importance of this type of storytelling, especially. But that like leading with why component and his whole kind of like deal about how he got to understanding this is the thing that you need to do, I think is super important. That really plays a lot into the kind of crafting of telling that origin story. Even if you're like somebody that doesn't have like, I mean, I don't have like a crazy legacy history or whatever, you know, I'm not sure how like my grandfather working at Boeing like would fit into my videographer story, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
but you know, I'm sure we could probably figure something out, right? So yes, I think the why part is super important, and that's usually where I start trying to craft the lead in. Is talking about why we're doing this, why you want to do this to begin with.
Yeah.
What about you? Where do you usually start?
I think that's a great way to start into it.
Trent doesn't talk about it. He has a lot of strategy and like high big picture thinking that like really lends itself to that specific type of conversation.
Do I?
Oh, you're
like every time we talk,
he's always giving me some idea for something that, or like reframing something some other way that like shifts my perspective on it. So yeah, I'm gonna say yes.
Well, I think when it comes to telling your origin story, yeah, my brain's just going to so many different places that we get there. But like, how do you even come up with that origin? How do you get it started? I really agree with what you said. Start with why. Why are you doing this? What's going through your brain? Also, I think it's good to just talk it out. Like literally just record yourself. And even if it's just an audio recorder, and just kind of record it all down, especially with the AI and other stuff that we talked about previously. It's actually really good if you just like brain dump what you're thinking. They can actually help you organize it in a better fashion to come up with like a true succinct story. Yeah. Again, your story is what it is. And if you just ramble for 20 minutes to not really get to a point, doesn't help you actually translate that to customers wanting to work with you. So,
and I think a lot of it, like everyone, no matter if you're a solopreneur or you're a business leader who's leading a team of 50 people or whatever, like you got to that point in your career because of all of the other things that has led you to that point.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and something that I try to do this, and sometimes I'm not able to do this well, but like I try to lead with like gratitude for all the lessons that I learned along the way to get me to where I am today. Whether or not, you know, I was in this third generation filmmaker family, which I'm not, but like, you know, like how did my first job, I know, right? How did my first job at a craft store teach me about hard work and the value of hard work? And like, there's this lesson that I learned from an owner who's now passed, Adrian. He owned Ben Franklin in Monroe.
Oh, nice.
He always told me every time he saw me, he's like, make sure you always have a pocket knife on you because you're never going to know when you're going to need it. And it was like, I was this 16-year-old kid in his first job. And he was just like, always remember to bring a pocket knife with you because you never know when you're going to need it for the job. still carry a pocket knife with me everywhere, pretty much everywhere I go.
I was really expecting that to be like a Ben Franklin Employee of the Month photo.
No,
from like
just
1995.
like in my wallet, I've got it
in his wallet. Like,
no, but
I love the pocket knife though.
Yeah, but it's just like these little lessons that you learn along the way that like make you into the person that you are. And just like spending time as an owner of a business or just as a business reflecting on what were some of those lessons that you learned and how, because you are a result of all of those lessons, and how do you use that in your story?
And I love that too, because I think that really ties into when we talk about you want the origin story for people to be able to connect you. That turns you into a real person, right?
Yeah.
That gets you beyond an entity. It's like, hey, I had this job. Like, I absolutely love that story. Like, that is phenomenal. I can see a whole campaign coming off of that for you, right?
Yeah.
So it just really leaning into those stories, even if you think they're the smallest little things, and you're like, this meant a lot to me, but no one's going to care. Like, you'd be surprised because that makes you relatable. That is such a cool story. And it's obviously had an impact on you. And if you can tie it into how you do what you do now, that's much more important. Like for you, my follow-up question is awesome. So he told you to always carry a pocket knife. How has that affected or impacted how you do videography?
Totally. And I'm sure there's a lot of lessons as to why that is. I can't think of them right now, but like you could, I mean, the thought exercise of that, of like understanding that you need to have tools to be able to accomplish your job well. Like I can probably, if I spent time thinking about it, unpack how that's like that core memory has affected how I think about like having the right tool for the job and always being prepared for different scenarios and for different outcomes. And even just the way that I think about producing films, being prepared and how I do that has its roots in that little lesson that I learned as a little high school kid in the receiving department at the craft store in Monroe. But we just don't, I don't think we spend enough time thinking about that as people.
You can like kind of break those pieces. They're like little, they're like Legos, you know, they're little building blocks of this origin story, right? And like a little piece from something I learned in high school. And here's a piece that I got from my favorite mentor. And here's a piece I got from my family. And you build these connection points that all kind of like make this little connection sales sandwich that you make this story, you craft this story from.
Well, and this made me think of another one, like when you're trying to figure out your story, right? If you don't have one of those memories that you can recall or you really think it's not that special, talk to your friends and your family, the ones that have seen you go through the struggle of creating your business. I guarantee you they're going to be like, oh, yeah, there's this. Like, even if you ask them, like, hey, what's my origin story? Like, what's the major thing that got me going into this? Like, what's something interesting about when I got started, or what did I do before this that led me to this? I guarantee you they have at least one, if not 20.
Yeah. Letting somebody else like reframe your story for you can be a good tool, you know? And like Diego and I do this all the time. Like where he's like, oh, what do you think about like he works in like a leadership program where they do these teaching lessons, and be like, I don't like the way this like lesson comes off. Like, what do you hear when you hear this? And like, what if you say it this way? And you're like, oh, well, that sounds like a much more effective way to make this point. So, you know, if you can, you know, tell or write your story down and then have somebody else like look at it or give you feedback about it, somebody who knows you well enough to, you know, point out the things that you might miss in your own story. Like, that's you overcoming, you know, your fear of whatever, or, you know, like whatever your thing is, you know, having that other person to like kind of reshape your own thinking about your own experience can be a helpful tool also.
Well, and I think another part of it that I think you both will agree with, unless you are like already like, unless you've already signed the contract with a videographer, or you're like, hey, we're really ready to go on this, like take your time with it. Like with that origin story, right? Like you said, get that feedback. Sometimes even you just writing it down, walking away for a week and coming back to it, you'll be like, oh, actually, I now remember this part of the story, which is so much cool, or something like that. So like, don't feel, yes, we're always in a rush with everything we do. But I think, Brian, you said so well, just stop and reflect. And use that time, right? Like this is something that if you do right can make a huge difference when you really get out there, right? So it's not something you want to or need to rush unless you've put yourself in that situation of promising a video or doing it or
and if you have signed a contract with a videographer, hopefully they wrote in some sort of pre-production element where it's like, hey, we're going to meet with you and help you like think through your story and think through all those things. And if they didn't write that in to the contract, ask them. most videographer, good videographers are storytellers first and videographers second. And so if you're working with someone, ask them like, hey, can we do a session where we just talk about our story, or just to prepare for these types of things? What kind of work can we do to do that?
Yeah.
Even if it's like, I don't know if I want to do any videos, but like, you're a storyteller. Can we meet and just chat about it? And like, you probably know the questions to ask me to like unlock those things in me. Like, I know I would be more than happy to sit down with someone to like just grab a beer or a coffee or whatever and like ask them questions about their story. I love doing that kind of stuff
for a very low consulting rate of
most of the times, I mean, yeah, like most of those times I offer it for free, like a free video consultation. And I say video consultation, but really it's just like a storytelling session where I just ask them questions about themselves.
I guess I don't know enough other videographers to like say it's the norm or that it would be the expectation. But in like a larger sense or whatever, right? Like outside of the room. Yeah. But to me, like what you said, like right on the head.
Yeah.
You're a good videographer should already be anticipating having this discussion perhaps multiple times, in order to get to the point that we need to be in order to get to production, like totally spot on. Like, it's like a requirement.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do otherwise, but
yeah, I agree. I think all of us are, if you catch us at the right time and just like, we're not rushing off to shoot or doing something. It's like, hey, can we talk about like, I think I want to do a video. Like, can you ask me some questions or like, can we help troubleshoot this? We're not going to just say no and walk away. Right. Like it's just in our nature, that curiosity. We love helping people tell those stories.
Yeah.
So I think the other big kind of lesson that we've talked about so far with this too, when you're coming up with the origin story, don't feel you have to do it alone.
Yeah, totally. You don't have to do it in a vacuum. It can be
it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it in a vacuum. Whether it's a professional, it's your employees, it's your family, it's whatever it is. Like there's so many resources out there and so much you learn by not doing it in a vacuum, hearing those other perspectives and hearing those other questions too. Yeah.
And I think it just makes you a better person too. Like understanding where you came from and whether that's good or bad, there's maybe like humility and vulnerability and unpacking that and going back through that. But then there's also just a lot of like pride or gratitude or thankfulness. I don't know when this episode is coming out, but it might be near Thanksgiving time. Maybe it's after. I'm not really sure.
Actually, this one would be right after.
Yeah. But like, that might give you a different perspective on your business and what you're trying to build and all that sort of stuff. And so whether you have, like you said, a family or friend or mentor or something like that, like work it out with someone.
Well, yeah. And this one will be coming out in the middle of the holidays. So even if it's not Thanksgiving, when you're around all your family more, how do you ask these questions? How can you do this and bring it on? And like everyone's already in that reflective state anyway. So now's a great time to be like, hey, how can we do this?
Hey, Trent, aren't you doing something that could totally relate and like really could totally be something that someone could take advantage of?
Yeah. One of the new things that I'm doing is letting you come into the studio where you see us record it and several other podcasts in the community and actually help record these family. I'm promoting it more for family stories, but I want people to come in here and be able to get that professional recording. That's something like that. So you can come in here, talk through it. I'll help you and talk you through it too. And you can get a professional audio recording, even if it's just for you to reflect on. I have deals at all different prices. So I want to make it accessible to you, help lock that in. And if we get to something that you really like, you then have something you can go and put out there too. So just, again, come work with us, come talk with us, and come by the studio. I'll soon to have banners and stuff up in my windows. So you'll actually be able to figure out where that is. But yeah, like, come do that, collect that, have that conversation, have that moment of reflection and take the time for it, right? Like this isn't something you can just snap your fingers and it's going to happen.
Good. Holiday magic.
Sparkle.
I'm not expecting to look like sparkles on screen during for that.
I'll see what I can do.
So with that, there's a mountain of things. There's maybe the analogy of the iceberg underneath the tip, which is what we see as who AJ is today, and then the iceberg before. But then what about like how you talk to a business about what kind of story they want to tell? Not the story that has brought them, but like moving forward, what kind of story do I want to tell as a business?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. I think I love that idea too, because I think I've done that with a lot of videos, and I do that with a lot of my clients whenever I'm talking to them, whether it's going to be in the same video or not. I'm always like, cool, how did you get here? What's the story? Where do you see this going? Like, right? Because it's now that you have people hooked in, they know your background, like, awesome, I love this person. But how do you also give them that roadmap of where you're going so that they can continue that emotional connection? So yeah, I really love that idea. And that is very important.
Yeah. It's also, it's like an interesting comparison, right? In a lot of the work that I do, that segment would, when we talk about what happens next, what are we doing in the future? There's the like kind of the obvious, we're going to add these programs or we're going to do this and that. But what that generally ends up being in a lot of the work that I do is your moment for advocacy for that group to like ask for funds or volunteers or participation of some sort or in-kind donations or whatever. Yeah. And it's usually where we have some sort of like a testimonial or a person who's been in the program is like making an ask, like, hey, if whatever your time, talent, treasure is, please like, donate or be part of this thing. And this is very interesting, like same kind of like we got to try to like pull this together here somehow with like what we're going to do next. Yeah. But the call to actions are distinctly different, the donate versus hey, come buy something or hey, come buy a service or whatever.
I think it's like where we are, where we're going, and it can look different for nonprofit because it usually is that ask. But then it's just like as a business who's selling a thing, a widget, like we wanted to create this thing to solve a problem. And then like we've created this story of like how we can make the world a better place basically through the thing that we are selling you. And so like that's sort of the storytelling I'm thinking of for businesses. It's like we saw a problem and we're helping to solve it. And so that's kind of the actionable. So like come with us on this journey if it makes sense for that or whatever it might be.
Well, and I feel like, I don't know why, I'm getting very reflective and I feel like it's very heavy. And it's like, we're coming up with the story and the details of the story, I think is what we're talking about, of like how you help create that. But there's also so many ways you could tell the story. Like, hey, come along with us. You could also make this completely ridiculous for our widgets. Like, yeah, we want to solve this widget, and now we're going to go take over Venus. And like you can. There's other like again, like you still want to have something that's valuable, but how you tell it. I'm realizing that's such a like such a micro specification that I don't know how to communicate that to someone that doesn't do video of like what is the story versus how you tell that story.
Right. There's like the whole like range, right? You could go with the like we talked about this before, the pharmaceutical commercials where it's we solved your problem and what comes next is you living your life whatever way you should be able to live, right? Those are almost always exclusively upbeat. Or they start like, oh, doesn't it suck you have Crohn's disease? Like, yeah, obviously. Thanks, Tom. And then you get to the solution or whatever, even though it causes like a million side effects. But the whole tone of it is very upbeat. It's like, here's Tom on his journey and he's overcoming this thing or whatever. And like the little Lamisil monster gets defeated or whatever. And now you're on to the next thing. But you can also go with like the super emotional, like heartstring pull with something like the Sarah McLachlan music and the Dogs and Kennels. Yeah, right. We can try to like guilt trip you into making this purchase. I think that's kind of like what you were touching on, right?
Yeah,
like what's the range of like emotional?
Right. Are you doing a parody?
What are we trying to invoke?
Right. Yeah. Are you doing a parody of something that's really famous already? Are you wanting to have that deep emotional connection? Are you wanting people to be like, yeah, I'm gonna run to the store right now. Yeah. Right, like you can hit that whole,
super technically proficient somehow. Do you have a camera doing like full 360 rotations and spinning 100 different directions and like doing crazy, complicated stuff?
I just wanted to bring that up because I think that was an important distinction to make, right? Like even as we're talking about what is the story, what's the content, what are the details, that doesn't necessarily mean the how, right? Like obviously, if it's a very sad story, like family loss is how you kind of got to be in this role. Doesn't make sense to suddenly include a circus or a big top in there, right? Like you got to have that context sometimes to go with the story, and you still have a lot of freedoms in there of how you really tell that story to what's the emotion you want people to do, what's the action you want them to do. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
I feel like again, like what makes you, right? If your origin story or like the story you want to tell is sad or is like effectively sad, right? But it's rooted in your. I started this business because a better life. This is a real life example. I started this nonprofit because my grandmother went through a really traumatic experience in the hospital, and I want to be an advocate for other people to not have to go through that. Find where you fit into that. If you are able to, like, I'm a super silly guy, right? Like, me being super sad and like downtrodden on video sounds like the complete and total antithesis of my personality. If AJ is going to go and try to tell a emotionally negatively charged story about my business, I would probably do it, me personally, in a very, very ridiculous, upbeat, and funny way, because that's how I want people to like take away the thing that I'm telling them about it. So even to find that little triangle of my story is happy, sad, whatever. I want to tell it in a manner that speaks to a person in this fashion, and we're going to accomplish that. It's like your exposure triangle. We're going to accomplish it by doing it in this method. So I don't know, a lot of components, but
and that's why you work with a storyteller, because they can take all those things and help tell a story.
It doesn't even have to be like one of us, right? Like, there are an incredible myriad of different storytellers of all, like everyone from, I met a puppeteer not too long ago who told one of the most incredible civil rights stories like I've ever heard. You know, I mean, it's the whole range. Like, there are all kinds of storytellers out there. It doesn't have to be a videographer that you work with to figure out that story. But it should be, though.
A lot of great.
It should be though. It should be one of us three.
There's also, just like as a business owner who might be listening to this, there's a lot of great books to think about story brand and things like that you can read to think about, how do I contextualize this business in the like context of a story.
It's like the 5 P's of branding or whatever.
There's so many books out there, but
7 brand characteristics.
But I think this is a good kind of summary point in this episode, because we've talked about a lot about how do you even come up with the story? How do you create the story? And we're starting to talk about how do you actually create it, right? Like what is the story versus how, and we're getting into some of those details of, there's so many nuances of what really goes into it. So take it away. What were some of the big ways that we covered of how to come up with your origin story? We talked about quite a few.
You can ask yourself external questions, like external facing questions, like what makes your product different? Why would somebody want to buy this from you? What's your personal why for why you make or create this thing?
I think I had the one of ask your friends and family. Why did you get into it? What do you think of most when you think of me starting this business? Those kind of questions.
And then just like some formative experiences that you've had as an individual that have influenced how you go about doing what you do.
Write it down. Talk about it. Talk to Chat GPT about it a little bit to get it on, written down, get it written on paper. And you can also, ask for that feedback about, how other people hear the things that you say. Chat GPT can be good for that too, potentially. It's a little bit sugary.
It is.
That's a kind of sugary rose-colored glasses view of everything.
It is.
But this is probably an instance where that's a good thing, right? That's actually, I think that's actually helpful. So
not necessarily a direct thing, but take your time with it. Like, don't feel it needs to be rushed. And
that reflection, that was the
reflection. Really, I think that's one of the biggest ones, right? Because it ultimately has to be what connects with you. So even if you hear all these stories and you're like, that's not it, you still need to take that time and reflect on it. So that's developing the what.
We didn't talk about it, but looking back at,
reflecting on
doing a callback to your mission, vision, values is also, I think, is a good technique. You don't have to say, like, on camera, our mission is and my values are, but you can, use those as leading points, as talking points, as things that direct your sense of how you want to describe yourself, because you already went through the effort of doing that. So use them.
Mission, vision, value. And then the how, that's going to be creative. Just really focus on, I don't even really want to touch on that one too much, because that one you can work with a storyteller. You can figure out on your own, look at examples you like, but ultimately just make sure it represents who you are and it's giving that emotion that you want. And you don't have to be an expert to do that. Just create something like we talked about in the previous episode. Just send it to some friends, get their reactions, and then you can iterate on it. Or if you don't want to go through all that, you can always talk with someone like us or someone that just has a little more experience there. So.
Like, who's the best storyteller in your friend group? Who tells the most absurd, outlandish, ridiculous, over-the-top stories?
That's a great way to define it, actually.
Can they do a quick read of your script for your video and reformat it using their storytelling technique, how hard does that hit? Is it good? Is it bad?
Yeah. Well, anything else from today, this episode?
Be grateful.
Be grateful.
Yeah, be grateful. Share your passions.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Like I frequently buy stuff that people demonstrate they're passionate about, you know what I mean? I went to a little farmer's market thing at the Helios Ballroom the other day. I bought nothing except for a jar of honey, and the gal who sold it to me, like, she could have sold me on every product that she had like available, you know what I mean? But it was all just about her and like connecting with her and listening to her whole story about why she had these bees and why she had these bee farms and how it was like part of her whole life and all this stuff or whatever. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, give me the honey, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So do your passion and make sure you really talk about and figure out that origin story.
Yep.
Well, until next time.